Hello, and welcome to HR Bytes, a podcast and video series to bring you stories of HR professionals who bring a think globally and act locally digital HR agenda to their work. Everyday people who are driving digital transformations in their organizations, data-driven and future-fit digital HR leaders. This is your host, Polaki, and today's guest is as global as we can get. Andrew Saidy is a human resources and digital transformation executive with more than 15 years of experience with public and private multinationals and international organizations. Andrew currently leads the talent mobility and employer branding programs at Seagate Technology in Paris. Welcome to the show, Andrew. So happy to have you here today.
Well, thanks a lot, Jay. Thank you for having me.
So I'm going to start with that dreaded interview question. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Andrew.
Sure. So as you said, I've been working in HR for many years. My area of specialty and passion is mostly HR technologies, and I've been in these for a few years now. I was based in the US. I moved to Paris a few months ago. And I'm leading talent mobility and employer branding at Seagate, which is an American company and a leader in data storage.
Wonderful. Well, how's the weather in Paris?
It is warm at the moment, which is unusual because we've had a few cold weeks.
Wow. Yeah, it's snowing here right now, so I don't envy you that weather. Or rather, I do envy you that weather. All right. So, Andrew, you are kind of the living example of the think globally and act locally HR agenda that we are all in need of during this time in our lives as well as in our work lives. How has the pandemic affected your HR function, especially in the organizations that you worked with? And, do you think that it has fast-tracked tech adoption, or do you think it has slowed down tech adoption in our function?
I think that the pandemic has affected HR more than any other function in organizations, because I think suddenly with the pandemic, HR functions have been in the spotlight, in the limelight with everything that we've been doing, the programs, the agility, the flexibility, and all these measures that we have taken. In terms of adoption of programs, I think technology has definitely been one of the programs that has been expedited by the pandemic. Along other programs as well, like well-being and flexibility at work and new ways of working. Because of the pandemic, a lot of HR programs that had been stalling for some time, like talent marketplaces, like recognition of employees socially rather than one-on-one, have also been expedited by the pandemic. The fact that we're all working from home, that we're all remote. Today, maybe I can't say we're all remote because I know that in many countries, people are starting to slowly go back to the office, but still a big number of employees are remote. So I think technology has been a savior in making sure that people can connect, they can make things happen remotely, and that people could be working efficiently with one another across geographies and time zones.
Absolutely. Do you see there's a vast difference between how workplaces are adopting and adapting during this time here in the US versus where you are right now in Paris, since you work in both areas?
I think that the approach to the pandemic has been slightly different depending on where you are, whether you're in the US, EMEA, or in Asia. Seagate has a big footprint in all these three regions, from, of course, a big hub in the US to a presence in EMEA and a very big employee-based presence in Asia. And across these regions, the approach to coming back to work has differed. First, because of local regulations. Here in France, we're still in a kind of a lockdown, which is a curfew after 6 p.m. In the UK, I'm sure you're following the news, it's the same. In the US, things have now been relaxed. So I think it's a mix of where are we ready to go back to the office and where we are not. The one thing that is constant across geographies is that organizations like Seagate have put in place a lot of safety measures to make sure that whether someone is going back to the office or not, if they come back to the office, they make it in a secure and safe manner for them and for their colleagues. And I think this is something that is common across geographies.
That is an interesting insight because, we all know the lockdowns have been different across the world, and the way people have reacted and adapted to the lockdowns also has been very different across the world. And I'm sure the HR data that is coming out of all of these experiences is so myriad and so different across the globe. How are you using HR data during this time in your department? And not specifically to the company you work in, but maybe if you could throw some light on how all of this data is going to impact the work that we do in the future, especially in our department.
One of the reasons why I was interested in joining Seagate is the leadership that Seagate has in data. We say that Seagate crafts the data sphere, and everything around us is data. I think that also extends to HR data. There is, as you said, a myriad of points, data points that we gather on employees, on career development, on what they're doing, on the projects that they're taking on a regular basis, whether they're at the office or not. Their approach to working remotely. There's data now also on employee well-being based on the number of hours that they spend online. And I think all this data is coming together with a strong data analytics function. I know that at Seagate, we're spending an important time and money on making sure that we have stellar data analytics. My previous company at Schneider, I know that we also had a very strong data analytics function. And all that is to tell you that at the end of the day, we need to make sure that we take decisions and we launch programs and we make strategies based on data, based on what is happening, what could be done better, and where we want to get. And all that has to do with data.
And in this digital first and data first agenda, people are the crux of it, right? Without people, none of this agenda is going to take root. How do you think your social network, your social capital within the organization has helped you kind of, scale innovation within the HR function, bring new ideas to the fore and bring new technology to the function? How has that worked for you, your network within and outside your organization?
Yeah, that's a great question, Joy. I'm not going to link it to the pandemic because I think this is a question that sort of transcends the pandemic. Your social network is very essential to get things done, whether within the same organization or outside of this organization. This is last week was my 100th day at Seagate, and it's so far has been a great ride. And one of the first things that I've been doing is connecting with others, making sure that I build bridges, making sure that I have these networking connections and calls, because these are the people who you can rely on to get things done, whether today or 6 months down the road, or maybe in 5 years. And that is the same that I was doing before at Schneider, whether internally within the organization or outside. So I think in general, it is very important to have a network. It's very important to grow your network. I always tell my teams and my direct reports that they need to spend at least 10-15% of their time on networking, because I know that for many leaders this might be wasted time, but for me, I think that this is definitely something that you can eventually bank on. It is an investment in these relationships in order to get to the deliverables that you need.
Absolutely, especially when we are in HR and we need technology support. Making those connections with our technology buddies in the organization are so essential right now, right?
So important.
Yeah.
So important. And now I think it's even harder than before, and we all need to double down on our efforts. I remember a time, it feels now like a long time ago, when we used to go to the office and there was the water cooler discussions and you had the canteen discussions. And all of this is gone now for many of us. So I think it is important to make sure that you find time to make these connections and networking online at the moment, and through video conferencing.
Absolutely. And, you already mentioned that networking is essential, but what's one piece of advice you have for our HR colleagues and HR professionals who are looking to adopt or adapt to technology in their function? It could be a piece of technology that's new to them, or it's a technology that's been present in their organization that they haven't used to their fullest, to its fullest capabilities. So, what's one piece of advice you have for them?
Uh, yeah, I think the one piece of advice that I would have for them is not everything that shines is gold. And if you're trying to adapt a new technology, make sure that your heart is in the right place. And for me, that right place is the return on investment. There's so many, and I can assure you, I get on a daily basis, I get approached by so many different business developers and sales managers on LinkedIn wanting to sell their HR technology. I think the HR technology space is now varied and very rich and the offer and the data and the value proposition for many is very interesting. However, not many of them bring you the value and bring the value for the organization. So my advice is act like an owner. If you buy anything in your personal life, we make this decision personally based on what value does it bring us. Do the same. Act like an owner in your organization and do the same and ask yourself this question. If getting this technology is going to make the life of your employees, of your managers, of HR better or not? And if the answer is not overwhelmingly yes, then do something else. You don't have to buy everything that shines.
Great advice. Wonderful. So, you've been front and center in uplifting our employee morale and empowering our organizations to lead and kind of remain competitive in the global HR space. What can HR as a function do to prepare us for this increased, hybrid workplace environment that we've been thrown into, right? But it's here to kind of stay, as you said earlier. I think going to the office will be a little less than working, virtually. And so, how do you think we as an HR function can help our employees work through this and be the best and bring the best to the workplace?
I like this question. About a year ago, I was asked the same question. And just to show you how much has changed in a year, my answer was three things: digital, digital, and digital. Because back then it was all about digital. We were pivoting, we were making these changes. The pandemic was still at the beginning. And what we needed is really to pivot in order to make sure that things are working. Now that most companies, at least the big companies, have pivoted, and the HR teams in these companies have, put in place the right things in order for things to work smoothly, more or less. Now I think the time is to shift from digital and start thinking about leadership again. Uh, as you said in asking the question, we're all working remotely, and this has brought a lot of strains on people, on well-being, on mental health, on insecurities, and so I think it is very important for HR to start preparing their companies on how can leaders manage teams remotely? What has changed? What changes when you manage someone remotely? How are you going to recognize someone at distance? How are you going to make sure that they feel valued, that they feel that their well-being is respected, that their mental health is in check? And I think in order to do that, leadership should be at the center again, and HR is the one to bring this about.
Absolutely. My husband received a package in the mail from his company during the midst of the pandemic, just because they wanted to say hello. So they sent him a coffee mug, of course, a lanyard. I don't know why they sent him a lanyard because he's never going to go into a physical space for a long time. But then, in addition to that, there was a signed card from the head of the division that he reports into, who heads all of Europe and the US. And the card was handwritten, and it simply said, "Thank you for all the work that you've been doing during this time, and we hope that you and your family are doing well." It was just that. And it was so touching. Amidst all the materialistic things that were sent, that one card really made the connection, right? It was so heartwarming to see that they took the
I
time to
love that.
handwrite the note and send it. So that really, again, I'm sure HR was the driver behind that, making that connection, because I would say most leaders in organizations that are not really global kind of have lost touch with that particular human connection piece. And so bringing that back into the scheme of things is a big challenge for HR, especially in smaller organizations.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm pretty sure that your husband is not looking for another job at the moment. And
Well, yeah.
this is the power of these, personal touches and this new and empathetic type of leadership. And I think it is needed in this new context that we're in.
Absolutely. So this brings us to the funner part of our conversation today. It's our fun question connection round. So who's one person in the HR technology space that you've connected with in the past year or so that you think everyone in HR tech should know?
In the HR technology space, I don't have someone specific in mind in the HR technology space, but I recently met someone in the HR space who's very interested in HR technology and has a view on HR technology in a way to drive things and move things forward. And that is and that person is the CHRO of Seagate. And the reason why I moved to Seagate, so the person's name is Patricia Frost, and one of a very strong leader, very impressive leader, very a leader with really a mission and a vision. So Patricia was a U.S. Army general with two
Wow.
stars, so pretty high in the U.S. Army, leading thousands of men and women. She's led cybersecurity technology for the surveillance piece. She's led the intelligence technology piece of the Army. So a lot of tech roles where leadership in the Army was required, and then decided that she wants to make a change and move into the private sector, and was able to, because of her leadership, was able to land this CHRO role, and it's very eye opening to see the way that she's leading the function, that she's transforming it, bringing in new technologies. I mean, with her leadership, we changed the ATS, we changed our HCM, we launched a talent marketplace, and now we're working on a digital alumni program and a lot more. And I think this is the reason why I'm giving you this example is you don't have to be an expert on HR technology in order to make your mark in this space. I think this is something that a lot of HR leaders are at the moment struggling with. My background is not in HR technology. How am I going to make my mark? And I think everyone could. You just need to have an open mind, to listen, to make sure that you have this empathetic leadership that I was speaking about a few minutes ago. So for me, Patricia is definitely one of the most impressive people that I met in the last year. In the HR space in general.
Very inspiring. The combination of Army and HR makes me really want to know Patricia more. So we'll link her, a LinkedIn profile. I'm sure she has one for the audience to connect as well. So thank you for that connection. That's awesome. So, what's your favorite HR podcast? I know you're all into podcasts. So, tell me, it's HR Bytes, and what's the other one?
HR Bytes for sure. And I like a podcast out of India that is called PeopleHum.
Okay.
It is. It's also very. It's small bites. It's very open. It's transparent. It's an easy conversation. And I very much like the HR leaders that they invite. They're always very nicely picked.
Awesome. We'll link that as well in the show notes for the audience. Wonderful. Do you have a favorite LinkedIn Learning or HR e-learning webinar that you think everyone in HR technology or wanting to be in HR technology should watch and learn from?
I have more than one. The first one that comes to mind is Future Workplace. So it's an advisory organization that does this great work. It's led by Gene Meister, who's one of the leaders in the HR tech space, and they do great work on the future of HR and the future of HR tech. So we're talking about AI, machine learning, and really the future of HR tech. I also like Josh Berson's HR Tech workshop. It's 5-6 weeks. It's a learning over 5-6 weeks, but it really ties together, all the different pieces that HR Tech people need to learn about.
Wonderful. And we'll link that in the show notes as well for the audience. So thank you. So, given the upheaval of all things work and life, what's one workplace trend that you think is here to stay, other than the Zoom shirt, of course?
Uh, for me, one workplace trend is flexibility. And I think that sort of transcends different pieces of the HR space. I think we're going to have flexibility in where we work. We're going to have flexibility in the way we work. We're going to have flexibility in how we get things done. And I think this flexibility is here to stay and permeate different pieces of our work life.
Wonderful. And I know you give back to the community and the HR community through your philanthropic work, as well as, coming on shows like mine. How else do you enjoy giving back to the HR community?
In many ways, one, I definitely like to give back with time and knowledge, and I also take back from the community because I also reach out to a lot of people asking questions, and they're gracious to answer them. But for me, definitely time is one of and knowledge is one of these ways. I always answer whenever someone reaches out on LinkedIn asking, we see that you did that. Can you tell us a bit more? I also participate to some of these events and conferences. I think it's important to share the knowledge and also, ask and answer some of these questions. I learned from some of your questions today, and I do that in general. So this is, one of these ways in which I give back.
Well, thank you for everything that you do for the community and, for, the sharing of knowledge, which is so essential today, virtually. And, our virtual platforms are helping us do that so much. So thank you for that. How would you like our audience to connect with you? What's the best way for them to connect with you online?
The best way would be LinkedIn. It's actually the only way that I use. So I'd be happy to connect on LinkedIn.
Absolutely. So thank you, Andrew. I really appreciate you taking the time and sharing your experience during this time in the HR tech space with us. And I'm sure our audience has learned a lot from this conversation as well. And lots of what you said resonates with them too. I'm sure of that. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks a lot, Jay. I appreciate it.
And audience, thank you so much for joining us today. I look forward to bringing you more such global HR tech stories. Take care. Bye-bye.